Let's find out if OLED matters.
Oh, okay. This is the hot potato, the deep topic, the one that's probably going to get the most hatred. But the most common thing that we get asked about, because we spent so much time looking at the Steam Deck and the Switch OLED before that, to be fair, and waxing lyrical about the OLED screen. It's the thing everyone loves the most. And then, of course, the ROG Ally X came out. And it doesn't have OLED, and that's the thing that people are most disappointed with, and we get asked about the most. Does it matter? What's the difference? So let's grasp the nettle and do it.
Let's talk about it.
Does it matter? No.
Ooh.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
It doesn't matter. And yeah, I'd have to agree with that, to be honest.
It does and it doesn't. Let's be fair. We've got to be fair, and we've got to be fair to the Steam Deck and our love for the Steam Deck OLED.
Yeah, the screen is beautiful.
It's a beautiful thing. And I want to start off with talking about the good bits about OLED and why it does matter before we talk about like its comparison to
let's go through
the
some
ROG. I said it right. The ROG.
The ROG. The ROG.
I mean, straight up, it's just a beautiful thing to look at.
It's amazing. It's such a lovely screen. 1000 nit brightness.
Yeah.
Like, so it really pops, doesn't it? Like the image quality, the color representation, everything is just it's a sight to behold.
Yeah.
Like, it looks beautiful. It really does.
And I'll never forget that experience that I've talked about a lot on this channel and on our podcast as well. Like that, my first experience seeing the Steam Deck OLED and being like, wow, this feels like the next generation.
Yeah.
And it does have that feel still.
Yeah, it does.
Like you say, that 1000 nit brightness is a huge thing. HDR as well.
Yeah. HDR. Yeah.
So if we take the performance aspect out of it, which is obviously a big thing, but
it is, yeah.
But if you just take just the visual aspects, just how it looks, I mean, a static image, or maybe a really older game, or something that's a bit more of a lower performance kind of indie title.
Yes.
Hands down, the best looking thing you'll see.
Winning.
It
Absolutely
wins.
winning. It's beautiful. It really is.
Colours are great. The blacks are beautiful.
Yeah.
HDR.
Yeah.
The viewing angle.
The viewing angle is insane, isn't it?
Well, it's perfect all the way around.
You can look at it at any angle. Yeah. And it just looks fantastic.
And I'll say that is a huge difference compared to the LCD that's in the ROG Ally X.
Yeah, it's noticeable.
As we're setting this shot up, I came back into where we're filming, and I was like, and I had like an angle shot both of them. Yeah. And the Steam Deck OLED is like perfectly bright.
Popping
I can see everything. It's literally like a cartoon shining at me. Yeah. And then I could see the Ally X, and it's like, it's like it's in screensaver mode or something. It's kind of quite dim.
Yes.
So that viewing angle things is huge. But I would argue how many people are playing it
at 45 degrees. Yeah, no one. Like, you're always straight up.
Viewing angle with a handheld's a weird one to argue that it's a more important thing, isn't it? Yeah. I get it for a monitor or a TV.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's a bigger thing that most people are probably going to be showing to someone else.
It's in a fixed position as well, isn't it?
Yeah, whereas these, I mean, the whole idea is that you hold them in front of your face, so you're always at the perfect, angle for it.
So, yeah, objectively, if you take performance out of the question, the OLED is 1,000 times better. Yeah. But you have to take a lot of the performance aspects out of it. And the reason why ASUS didn't put an OLED panel in the ROG Ally X, it's not just frame rate performance and the advantages that VRR give you, which we'll touch upon later on, but also efficiency of the battery, and heat generation. Yeah. They're the big reasons why ASUS didn't, and why others haven't as well.
Yes, and I didn't even know, because I always thought OLED would be more power efficient, because it's turning pixels off to create those deep blacks and everything. I've genuinely thought it would be more power friendly, whereas when ASUS turned around and went, no, actually it's not, in terms of the driver or whatever reason it is for that. And that's why they decided to stick with it as part of the reason.
I wish I was clever enough to know the exact scientific reason.
Yeah, me too.
But guess what? We're not. We just make YouTube videos. Who would have thought it?
Yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it? Because I genuinely thought, that would be the case. I thought, OLED's going to be the most power efficient. You're going to get even better battery. But actually, they've turned around and gone, no. Part of the reason why we chose the LCD for the Ally is because it uses less power.
It's incredible. And I guess it helps with the cooling efficiency as well.
Yeah,
because of that.
So. Yeah, I imagine
less power draw.
Yeah.
I don't want to be too hard on it because I do love how the OLED looks in the Steam Deck.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
I kind of wish you could have I wish you could have the best of both in this situation.
Yeah.
Wish you could have the technology that's available in the LCD panels from the Ally X.
Yes.
But with the Steam Deck's OLED.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine an OLED HDR VRR panel.
Immense.
That is the next generation. It is.
I guess the big factors there are cost.
Yes.
What's it going to cost to do that? The technology involved and the battery efficiency. Because one of the big advantages of the ASUS Ally X is the battery efficiency is incredible.
Oh, it's amazing.
The playtime you get on it handheld is amazing.
Yeah, it's absolutely mind-blowing. You know, it beats the Steam Deck OLED out of the water.
It really does.
If you put it all on the same settings and everything, you know, you got what, 50 watt hour versus an 80, you know, which surprised me even when I started seeing people doing deep dive tests on the batteries. I still, for some reason, just assumed the Steam Deck OLED would win, but it doesn't. So it's like,
kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess you could stop the debate there if it depends on the types of games you're playing.
It really does. It does, depending on the game.
And I guess that's actually the difference between the Steam Deck and the Ally is the types of games you want to play.
Yes.
If you want to do emulation, if you want to play retro games, if you've got a back catalogue in your Steam library, if you want to play, I don't know, like 2.5D Metroidvanias.
or indie games. Like if you're a big person that just wants to play indies or whatever, it's never going to look any better than it does.
It's as good as it gets.
Yeah, on the Steam Deck OLED, HDR, OLED, you know, 90 hertz, and indie games and retro titles are going to be able to take advantage of that and play at those higher frame rates. Because they're older. You know, like the Steam Deck does that wonderfully, and you'll never have seen these games look so good. Again, me emulating GameCube games on here. Like they just look so good, and I love that.
It was amazing.
It's so good, and that's one thing I love about it.
The other thing I'll touch on before we get into the advantages of the LCD, which seems like a weird thing to say even in that sentence, is the aspect ratio as well.
Yes, because that's where the Steam Deck, again, you know, has another advantage, really. The 16:10 versus the 16:9. But straight away there, if you looked at these just in a shop and you knew nothing, you could if you had some PC like intellect, you would already know kind of what these devices are aimed at.
Yeah.
Like I see 16:9 and I think modern.
Widescreen.
You know widescreen, like most modern games. I see 16:10 and think retro.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
It's
like,
got a 4:3 feel to it, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. So it's like, okay, the older games are going to look really cool on this, whereas the newer ones will probably lend itself better to this.
It's actually a really quite visual cue as to what it's kind of for.
Yeah.
And why emulation is so good on the Steam Deck.
Yes.
It's like a really obvious, like, big visual thing.
Yeah.
So again, I guess that's the point at which you can go, if that's all you're interested in, then Steam Deck all the way.
Yep, done.
The OLED is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But does it matter? Well, this is where it starts to fall apart, is when you start looking at AAA games and the things that the kind of the PC gamers and console gamers are going to be wanting.
Yeah.
And now it starts to fall apart.
It does, it does. When you actually look at it like side by side and under the microscope a bit more, then there are some obvious differences.
And it's VRR.
Yeah.
In big shining neon letters. Yeah. Because VRR doesn't exist in these OLED panels yet in an efficient and affordable way, having VRR on the LCD is everything.
Oh, yeah, it really is. Yeah, absolutely is. The VRR like changes everything, especially, again, when you think of where these are. If we take the stance that the OLED here is aimed at those older titles and that this is aimed at the newer titles, VRR is important with where we are right now with how far games are getting pushed and the technology we've got to try and reach those heights, you know, and the fluctuation.
Well, when you consider handheld devices, laptops, and some of the consoles as well, everything's kind of system on a chip based rather than having like discrete GPUs like you get in a PC.
Yeah.
So you're reliant on the APU to process and to render.
Yeah.
It's doing it all.
Yep.
So the amount of resources are quite limited. So you're going to very naturally get either a massive dip in performance in certain games or huge fluctuations in certain areas. Ratchet and Clank's actually a really good example. You get lots of fluctuation depending on what's happening with the texture and the environment and stuff. The VRR just kind of sorts
smooths it out, doesn't it? Yeah, because we've got the Ally here running, about 50, mid 50s at like 17 watts, and then we pumped it up to max power, like on battery at least 25 watts, and was getting over 60. But the perceivable FPS, if you turned the FPS reader off, you wouldn't have noticed.
Honestly, the difference between it being in performance mode at 17 watts and then up to turbo mode at 25 is the turbo mode. You didn't notice that kind of 10 FPS jump because in performance mode, it looked like 60 FPS.
Yeah.
Because how the VRR was dealing with that.
Exactly, yeah.
Unfortunately, on the OLED, you're getting low 30 FPS.
Yes.
And you can see it.
Yes. Yeah, you can. You can see it.
You can see the difference.
Yes, you can. Yeah, absolutely.
And you can see the fluctuations as well.
Yeah, and like going from like halving the frame rate is so visually like noticeable. Like if you spent 10 minutes playing it around 60, like well, anywhere between 40 and 60.
And visually looks like it's 60 the whole time.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, between 40 and 60 FPS looks like 60. Yeah. If you spent 10 minutes playing this and then jump to this, which we did, I was like, oh, that 30 FPS looks a bit jarring,
And I think, like we're saying, it kind of a little bit earlier in the video, if you stopped at the point of the Steam Deck OLED is amazing, if you hadn't experienced this would be perfect.
Oh, it would be,
it's fine. Yeah, it's great. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not like, I'm aware it's not it's a bit like playing on the Series S versus the Series X. I know it's not as good as it could be, but it's fine.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And it is, but once you see the difference, you can't go backwards.
No.
And if that sacrifice is not having an OLED panel, then I'm more than willing to have a much better performance game.
Yeah.
And not having an OLED.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I will take the VRR for modern titles any day because it's almost needed. It's even needed for console gaming now, where the home console can't even achieve a locked frame rate. So TVs without VRR are going to suffer, and your gameplay is going to be noticeably worse than someone that has a VRR panel that can smooth over all the the bad times.
As these new compression softwares and driver-based things are being implemented, and like fluid motion and stuff are there. Yes, the demand on the processing itself is going to be reduced, but what inevitably is going to happen is games are going to push that even harder.
Yes,
to make things like VRR not just a nice to have. It's like we're going to have them.
I feel like we're there already.
Yeah,
like
probably.
I really do. For the bleeding edge latest titles, I feel like we're already there. Yeah. Like on console and even on like PC. I mean, in my eyes, PCs, I would never buy a monitor without VRR. I've been using G-Sync because you've got G-Sync and FreeSync.
Yeah.
I've been buying G-Sync monitors since they came out in like 2013 or something. Like it's been a long time. It's been like 10 years, more maybe. And I remember it being mind blown buying that. Like that felt like I'd upgraded my graphics card.
Yeah.
Like because it was so perceivable. Like playing FPS games, I was playing like Call of Duty or whatever and being like, oh my God, the screen's not tearing. Like everything's so smooth. And I just took that as that's a necessity for PC gaming now because I've experienced it. And it's kind of like what you experience when you first see an OLED. It's like, oh my God, I love this because it is amazing. I'm not like poo-pooing that in any way. But because games are so demanding now, I feel like VRR is a necessity.
Yeah.
And that's why I see and why I'm keeping the Steam Deck OLED as my retro and indie and older title stuff, like low-powered stuff, because those games look great anyway. And the other big thing we haven't talked about is obviously the resolution here. Because we're at 800p here.
Yeah.
And we're at 30 FPS. We're at 1080p at like 60, basically.
So you've got a high resolution. And now this is where it gets really interesting. You're, without even knowing like the numbers and stuff, the kind of nerdy stuff involved in it, you just look at it and go, God, that looks better.
Yes.
It looks sharper. It's more detailed in image. And it's kind of obvious. They've got a 7.4 inch screen in this and a 7-inch screen in that.
Yeah.
This has got a higher resolution than this.
Yep.
And because that's an LCD, it's actually got a higher pixel density as well. So the pixels per inch are low. I've actually written it down.
I know, yeah.
So
I remember it.
Do you remember it? Tell me. Let's go.
315 on the Ally X, 204.
Oh, he's got it right.
Yes.
Damn you. You're remembering stuff.
Yeah.
And that jump is like hugely noticeable.
Oh, massively. And that's pixels per inch.
Yeah.
So every inch, that's got 204, and this has got 315. And that is so noticeable.
Yeah.
Like when I loaded up the Steam Deck and put Ratchet and Clank on, I was like, whoa. It's like, it looks a bit muddy. And like the image is breaking. Like it's almost like you can see the pixels. Like around the edges and stuff, it's like there's like no anti-aliasing. It's like all like jaggedy and a bit funky looking.
It's almost like the step up between 1080 and 4K.
Yeah.
Like on a TV, like if you just
just
that real basic step up. That's kind of perceived difference.
Yes, it is noticeable. And again, the other thing, I know we're not talking about performance here, but this is running 800p at 30 FPS, 1080p, like pretty much 60. If we put the Ally X in 900p mode, we'd probably gain another 10, 20 FPS.
Yeah.
Like it's insane. So you'd be getting like probably 70 FPS from this at the same sort of resolutions.
And at similar wattages as well.
And the pixel density is still more, so it still look better.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting.
The other thing I wanted to say, like kind of following on from the fact that this LCD panel has not just a better resolution, but a better perceived resolution as well, because of that PPI.
Yeah.
Is actually, now this is more subjective rather than objective, is actually how good that LCD panel looks.
Yeah. As far as LCD goes, it looks fantastic.
Yes, it's not as bright.
Yeah.
It doesn't have HDR.
No.
Viewing angle isn't as good.
Yep.
But here's the kind of subjective thing. When I'm playing it, I'm looking at it and going, this looks beautiful.
Yeah, it looks
amazing. And at no point in the time I've had with it have I considered, I wish this was an OLED.
Oh, not once.
So it doesn't even come into my head.
No, me either. No.
But yet when I first experienced, and you very much so when you first bought the LCD Steam Deck, you were like, if they do an OLED, I'm buying it because it would be better.
Literally, as I opened the original Steam Deck like LCD and I turned it on for the first time and you see the bleed and that was that ruined Christmas. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was like, oh, well, I've got a dodgy
like
one.
installing Windows.
Yeah. But I turned on the LCD deck and I was like, I know this is going to be great.
Yeah.
Like, I'm having real good fun. This is mind-blowing. But that screen, man, sucks. Yeah. Like, it was bad. And I said within 10 minutes of playing on it, I said, if they release an OLED, I'm buying it day one, just because of how much love I already had for the system, that I knew it could be better.
Yeah.
But like you said, with the Ally 1 and the Ally X, because they share the same screen, I didn't have that. And that was a concern of mine.
Definitely.
When so much time spent with the OLED, when they sent the original pre-production, obviously this one I've bought myself because I love it so much, but when they sent the original, I was thinking, it's going to suck. Yeah. Just like I had my LCD Steam Deck thoughts in my head, booted it up and went, whoa, like, hang on a minute.
I think when I kind of summarize the feedback we get in comments and stuff, for people that haven't yet played the Ally X, I think that's exactly the problem, is that on paper, you have that, it's not an OLED, it's not as good.
Yeah, so you immediately think it's going to suck.
Exactly. Yeah. And I would agree with you all until you actually experience it and go, this doesn't feel like an LCD panel. It's that good. And I'm getting all of these huge benefits that we've listed off of performance from the VRR and the high frame rate, and then just the general high performance you get from the machine itself compared to the Steam Deck.
And the resolution and the pixel density.
Just all the perceived kind of improvements you get. That idea of it not being an OLED suddenly disappears when it's in your hand.
Yeah.
So you go, for an LCD panel, this is beautiful. It's kind of comparable to my feeling I got when I was experiencing an OLED panel.
Yeah. And the thing that did it for me, just to jump in, was us playing Gears 5. That's quite a dark game in areas.
Yeah, really dark.
There's a lot of you're in underground and stuff and whatever. I've not noticed 1 second. Like, we've been playing it start to finish, the whole game, just on the Ally X's, and I'm more blown away by how good it looks and how good the graphics are and how sharp it is, and the pixel density and everything, and the resolution, how good it looks, rather than going, oh look, we're in a dark bit, oh that screen sucks. I've not had that once.
There's been areas where, and it's kind of like a running joke in playing that game, where it's like you can't see anything.
Yeah,
because you need the guy with Dave with the torch, whatever he's called, Jack.
Yeah,
Jave.
we call him Jave. Yeah, because he started off as Dave and then turned into Jack.
So it's like there's moments where you're like, it's pitch black until someone's going to illuminate it for you, and at no point have I gone, oh, that's bleeding horrible. I can see.
You don't notice it, do you?
it's kind of like an OLED.
Yeah.
And I know that's a stupid thing to say.
Yeah, it is.
But it's kind of like an OLED.
Yeah. I think they've just chosen, like they've gone, all right, guys, we're going to stay with LCD. Everyone's going to hate us for it, but it's the better move because it's got VRR. So let's just put a really good quality LCD.
Let's put the best one we can find in there.
And that's what they've done. You know, it's a native landscape screen rather than like a portrait one that's turned. So it's like a better screen.
For certain, when the next generation comes along and we have affordable, efficient OLED panels that can do VRR, then yes, we're all on board.
Oh, 100%.
OLED is better.
It will be the better. Yeah, we're not like saying, no, OLED sucks. Yeah. Like, OLED is the way.
And this isn't by any means copium, because I implore you all to experience it.
Yes.
And then you'll understand what it is we're trying to convey.
Yeah.
Because, yes, OLED matters.
It does matter, yeah.
But right now, the LCD in the Ally X is better.
I think it's the right move. They did the right thing.
I feel really stupid saying that, but it's absolutely how I feel.
Yes. And right now, where we are, like we were saying earlier, with where we're at with gaming and the tech that we've got to try and drive the frames and everything, I think VRR is more important.
VRR is way more important than blacks.
Yeah. For the most modern titles. Again, if you're just emulation or retro or whatever, you know, then like the OLED here will do you wonders. But if you're trying to push like Star Wars Outlaws or whatever it might be, the latest thing, that VRR is going to hide all those dodgy frames. you know, it really is. It's going to marry it up and make it look fantastic.
And here's the thing I'll say. This feels like I'm playing the best console in my hands.
Yeah.
I'm having more fun playing this than the PlayStation.
Yeah.
And I've got it in my hands.
Yeah.
I can play all my favorite games in my hands. Anywhere. Whereas on the Steam Deck, I'll be struggling to play some of those games.
Oh, 100%, yeah. Yeah.
So does it matter? Yeah, it does matter on paper.
Yes.
But in actual real life experience in the field, then I would pick the LCD with VRR in this and the performance gains you get from that, high pixel density and all those things over the OLED in this.
Yeah, I would too.
As crazy as that sounds.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And I wouldn't have agreed with you unless I'd had experience with both. Yep. And I think that's why people get so irate. Oh, well, they didn't put an OLED in the Ally X. It's like, yeah, but it was the right move.
Yeah.
Like they did it for a reason. And once you've experienced both, you see why, you know, and I genuinely think they did the right thing.
Yeah.
Because I would choose it. If they did two models and they went, you know, choose yourself, buy an OLED.
Yeah. Or no VRR, but you've got an OLED, less battery life.
And then I would still, if I'd experienced both, I can tell you now I'd go VRR LCD. I would.
Well, on that bombshell, I think we should leave before we get any more hatred. I'm interested to know, by the time you watch this video, what's the ratio at?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I wonder. People are going to be crying hard.
There's going to be a lot of crying in this. And whilst you're down there looking at the ratio, make sure you like the video.
Oh, yes.
Subscribe to the channel.
Yes.
Leave a comment if you've experienced the Ally X LCD and what your experience is with it. And if you're kind of worried about the lack of OLED, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Really like that. What else should they do, Andy?
Become a member. Yes, where you can see these videos early sometimes. And you can join our private Discord where you can talk to us.
This is a very nice thing to do.
Yeah, it is.
And before you go, watch another video.
Yes.
Smashed between our faces.
Do it.
This bottom one's quite exciting.
It could be, yeah.
Not sure about that one, though.
Don't know, I haven't watched that.
Bye.
Bye.